Hi, I'm Chris McKenna, and welcome to our fourth episode in this series on creative writing. So today we're going to talk about where stories come from. But just before we do that, as a reminder, if you're looking for any reading information or additional information about the course, you can find it on the blog at mckennastories.wordpress.com. Hopefully I'll see you there. So today we're going to talk about where stories come from. So it's a really hard question, actually. I would agree with Stephen King on this one in that I have absolutely no idea. So it's going to be a very short episode. But it's one of those things. After I have an idea, I can look back and I can see, this must have came from there, and this must have came from there, and I've somehow mixed them together in my head. Sometimes I can't do that, but sometimes I can. Can I repeat that? No. I don't have a system whereby I can do an activity of type A, and then I can think of something of type B, and it will flow together. There's no, at least for me, there's no scientific way of coming up with a story. But that's just me. What about you guys? What do you think? Is it possible for us to come up with a system whereby we create stories? If you're with a group, it's a perfect time to do a little discussion. So take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 4 hours, whatever you feel like. Have a chat. What do you think? Can you have a system for creating stories? So hopefully you've had some good thoughts and some good discussions on the matter. If you're by yourself, hopefully you've written down a few ideas. Very important, if you have came to some conclusion that stories come from, I don't know, magical wonder place B, that's fine. That's absolutely no problem. I don't have the answers. It's not, the point in these lessons are not for you to agree with me, but for you to think about it. So it's absolutely fine if you disagree with certain things that I say. That's good. Different writers have different ideas, and in time, you should come up with your own ideas. That's the way we want this course to go. So I did say that I have no idea where stories come from. And this is true. However, for me at least, I have found some things that are useful, or at least things that I can do in my life that make it easier for me to discover stories. I suppose there is a big question as to whether stories are made or discovered. I think this is one of those funny arguments that can come up. We're not going to go into it today. Maybe you can think about it. But anyway, let's just say discovered for now. So how do we discover a story? The first one would be being open to stories. And now, what do I mean by that? Well, let's think of it in a non-writing way. I've been told, and I'm sure psychologists will correct me if I'm wrong. I have been told that at least in the olden days when Freud was doing his dream analysis, he used to ask patients to tell him, tell me about your dreams, or in a proper accent. Freud was Austrian, right? I can't do Austrian accent despite living there. So anyway, Freud would ask them to tell about the dreams, and of course, every now and again, he would get a patient who would say, I don't remember my dreams. Now, this is, how can you analyze someone's dreams if they don't have? But supposedly, if you ask someone If Freud would then direct them to, oh, it's okay, just, have a think about it. Try your best. Try and write down some of the dreams that you have. Leave the pad of paper beside your bed. We'll see what happens. Let's just see. And funny enough, the next week the patient will come in and say, oh, I had these most amazing dreams. They were all fantastic and I was flying and blah, 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 blah. So this is maybe the same with writing. If you want to have a good idea, if you want ideas to come to you, you have to be looking for ideas to begin with. Now, the fact that you're here and listening to this program probably means you're going in that direction anyway. But it does help to really be prepared. So a lot of people, this is something I don't do, by the way, because I tend to remember my ideas, but a lot of people carry a pad of paper around with them, and as soon as they get an idea, they write it down. Quite similar to the Freudian, dream analysis thing. Be ready for your ideas. I'd like to say at this point, I don't think writers are special. I don't think that writers, are some alien group of people that exist within humanity. Rather, I think we're just paying attention to something that everybody gets. So everybody gets ideas on things to write. Everybody comes up with these things. It happens. It's a natural process for all humans. For some more than others, but it seems to be a natural process. The difference for a writer is that a writer will stop and listen to that idea. And instead of just going on to the next thing, they'll take that idea and they'll do something with it. I suppose it's the same for all artists. Now and again I come up with, oh, I could draw this amazing thing. Unfortunately, I can't draw. I have zero ability in drawing. So I throw that idea away. If I was a, painter or something, I would probably stick with that idea and carry on with it. So I think it's the same for all people. In writing, especially. So be ready for ideas when they come. The second thing is, see, I've lost my place now. Hang on till I find my notes. The second thing is experiencing new things. Now, this one might be a bit contentious, so you're happy to argue with me. But I think to be a good writer, you have to be constantly experiencing new things. Personally, I tend to travel around. I change my job pretty much every year. I wander around, meet new people all the time, and my experience is constantly building. You don't have to do it on such a world scale, though. You don't have to move country or move city all the time. I don't think that's necessary.
So the first planning,
but you do have to be doing new things. I think if you're in a constant daily routine, going round in circles all day,
start in the center.
I think it can be difficult to come up with ideas.
At least
maybe I'm
my first
wrong. But I would suggest, if you've ever seen the film Yes Man, I think it's a Jim Carrey comedy. And the idea is that anytime he
something on the style that I'm trying to use
is asked to do something, really he must say yes. So he must be 100% open to new experiences. I would suggest you kind of try something, not quite as extreme, but try something similar to that. Try doing things that you don't necessarily like, just for the experience. And see what happens. See if it inspires new ideas. For me, writing is about perspective. It's about having my own perspective, but in many ways, it's about having perspective on other people as well. It's about empathy. I assume perspective and empathy are connected. If you want to write from the place of all these different people, you have to have some perspective on their lives. As someone who lives in Scotland, or sorry, I don't live in Scotland, I live in Indonesia. I forgot. As someone who comes from Scotland, one thing that I have seen on a few Scottish stories on Amazon reviews, I've seen quite a few of it, is this person has never been to Scotland in their life. And it's clear that people are writing from a imagined view of what Scotland is really like. It's a sort of fantastical view. And in many ways it's okay. I don't find it so annoying, but it's clear that some people do. So, can you write something if you've had no perspective on it? Can you just make it up? You can. I mean, an example is Neil Gaiman. I think he said the Sandman stories, I think they're all set in New York. And he said when he wrote it, he had never been to New York. His experience of New York was movies. And so, it is possible to write it in an acceptable way. But then maybe New Yorkers are sort of used to their city being made into this film world that doesn't really exist. Who knows? But I say you need to get perspective. You need to put yourself in other people's shoes, and to do that, you have to go out and you have to live. I think it's good advice anyway. I think everybody should go out and do stuff. Just live a little. Maybe you'll enjoy it. Maybe you'll stop writing and be happier. That's okay. That's fine. Anyway, worth a try. The third point, and the final one, is read, watch, and listen. So, read, by which I watch and listen, I mean, I don't mean follow people and watch them like a stalker. Although that might help. That might be another one that you think is a good idea. I would say that fits into the second category of experience, though. And the third one, by read, watch, and listen, I mean, in your genre, you have to read, you have to watch, and you have to listen. So, read books, read screenplays, watch movies, watch television. I'm not keen on television myself, but maybe watch television, at least in your genres, okay? Avoid Jeremy Kyle and Oprah type things. Third one would be listen. I listen to a lot of radio dramas. If you're looking for some, try Radio 4. Radio 4 has a fantastic series of comedies and science fiction shows and detective stories and dramas, classics, all just free to listen to. But the point is, you have to know what's in your genre. So I'm not saying you should copy. There's a very fine line. I'm doing this with my grade 6 students at the moment. Primary 6, sorry. I've been Americanized. You can't just copy. Copying is no, do not copy. However, stories can be new perspectives and new ideas built on ideas of what have come before. For example, Isaac Asimov is a very famous science fiction writer. And he has all these ideas, or he's sort of considered the father of robotics in stories, or at least androids. And all those questions about, can robots ever have real emotions? All this kind of stuff. I think his ideas could have originated somewhere else, but I think he's credited with having came up with those stories in the first place. But then if you go on to, say, Star Trek, a show I very much like, having said I don't like television, if you go into Star Trek, you have characters like Data, and then an extension of Data would be the Doctor and Voyager, who take this original idea and then they move it another step forward. They add in other ideas. So they're building on the ideas that are already in their genre. So this is an acceptable way, as far as I'm concerned, of coming up with ideas and stories, is to build, not copy, to build on what has come before. If you're not adding anything else to the story, possibly you're copying. Be careful. Check with friends and things first about ideas. Another thing I would say on the same point of reading and listening and watching in your genre is sometimes you come up with a story independently, but it's already been done. You didn't copy it, but someone's already done it. This can be very annoying. It's happened to me a couple of times, where I've, at least as far as I'm aware, came up independently with an idea for a story. And then I'll see a trailer for a movie, or I'll read the blurb for a book, and I'll say, "Hey, that was the idea I was about to work on. Oh no!" It happens. I think it happens quite a lot to people. So one thing about having read and listened in your genre is you know what's out there, and you're not going to spend a lot of time, writing something that someone's already done. You should read that book that is similar to your idea, and then you can build on that again. So those three ideas were, once I see my notes, being open to stories. So be receptive to new ideas. Be ready to write them down or be ready to take them in. Experience new things. By building up experience, you can build up ideas on what to write about. And read, watch, and listen. I think they can all be summarized in one sentence, which would be look for inspiration and don't wait for it to come to you. It's very easy to say, oh, I'm just going to be a writer. I'll sit and inspiration will come. It might. But in my experience, my ideas are based on what has came in. And then it's an internal response. It's an internal response to external events, perhaps. So anyway, take a few minutes, and if you're by yourself or if you're in a group, like I said, doing this with friends, even if it's just on the internet, is a really big help. But take a few minutes and talk about what do you think about what I've just said? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what about your own ideas? Where do your stories come from? What have you found helpful in generating new stories? Okay, so again, hopefully you've had some very interesting discussions and ideas, or you've written down some nice reflections. That's pretty much it for this episode. If you're looking for some homework suggestions, I would say it would be a really good idea if you could first clear out your head. So sit down and brainstorm stories. Brainstorm what's in there already. Write them all down. You can share with other people if you want. Once you've done that, your homework is to come up with a new story idea for next week. So something new, not connected to the ones you've already done. Small connections are okay, but not just rehashing ideas you already have. See if you can generate a completely new idea. If you manage to do that, reflect on it. Where did that idea come from? What were the inputs that helped to generate that idea? If you're working with a group, then next week when you come in, you can start by discussing what idea did you have, and most importantly, what created that idea? Where did it come from? if you were able to identify it. So, excuse me. Next week, someone requested that we do setting because I did some things on characters, and they also wanted me to go a bit more detail into settings. So we'll discuss that in the next episode. I say next week, but I mean the next time I'm not, the next time I have time to do it. And it's been a while since this video because I ended up being sick, and then we have school exams and all over the place. So, but I'll try and keep them coming as regularly as possible. Thanks, and good luck.